Alright guys, I am back with another video, and all I can tell you is, oh boy, this is going to make your eyes water. So I'm warning you up front. I saw this like right before the previous weekend, and I thought by now that someone would have covered this thing and just gone ahead and did what they had to do, but no. But somehow it popped up on my YouTube feed, and when I clicked on it, my jaw hit the floor. This woman does everything. Sorry, I just ate some popcorn. This woman does just describes in detail exactly how modern women live and how they come to be where they are. And then at the end of that, she gonna break out a crack pipe, and she gonna take a big old rock of hopium, and I mean like the Queen's jewels, and she gonna shove it down in there, and she gonna light that thing up and huff it like you wouldn't believe. She gonna fill the whole room with smoke to where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. So we need to get into this, and you'll see why as we go. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first part of it, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll carry on from there. So prepare yourselves, because boy howdy, this was going to make your ears bleed. This was going to make your ears bleed. So let's
I'm
look.
transparent with you guys. I've never been married. I am currently single. I am dating, or rather, online dating and doing that whole online thing, which y'all know how I feel about that, but I'm trying. But no, I've never had children. And, the topic of marriage, especially when you're over 40 and you're a woman, is something that can be touchy, I think, for many of us. It certainly has been touchy for me. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story and also tell you why I think this is really important for us all to talk about. First of all, like I said, never been married, but I have been engaged. I was engaged about 4 years or so ago, very short lived. I ended the engagement. That was absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm happy that I did that. Never looked back. Okay, so that is, I was engaged once. I've never had children, but I have frozen my eggs before I turned 40. Actually, my parents, it was my parents actually who encouraged me to freeze my eggs. And I remember being like completely offended by them saying it. I was like, what, you think I can't find no man? What, you think I can't get no man? What you trying to say? I was so offended. I was like, what? Um,
All right, guys. So there it is. So let's start at the beginning. She's over 40, never been married, never had any kids. She was engaged once, right? Common story. Oh, I've never been married, but I have been engaged, right? So I think you'll like this little meme that I come up with about that. Enjoy that. But yeah, this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about just this nothing. She got nothing. She's got nothing. Okay? But she wants to tell you her story, and she's gonna. And it's gonna be good. But let's talk seriously about the one thing. She's capping when she talks about how she should have broken off that engagement. If she had her way, she'd have a ring on it right now. And there's a reason that she doesn't. And you're going to see it. Let's go on.
I remember believe what my parents told me to do. And they were like, oh, yeah, I've frozen my eggs. And I was like, what? Huh? Come again? Anyway, long story short, I've done a video on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the ladies in your life, take a look at that. Egg freezing is really a thing, and it's an important thing for many of us. And I froze my eggs twice before the age of 40. I didn't get a lot of eggs the first time, and then I got more the second time. So, I do have eggs in the freezer. I pay egg rent every year, but I've never had children, etc. So I know a lot of you are probably like, well, why have you ever never been married? Um, Let me first start out by just like real talk. I think one of the hardest things about never having been married, being over the age of 40, etc., is I've always been afraid of what people think about that. And maybe it's not the thing you're thinking about, right? There is a lot of societal pressure to be married, to have children, especially in certain cultures, in certain parts of the world, etc. So that exists. But interestingly enough, My parents never put a lot of pressure on me to get married and procreate, have children. In fact, sometimes I wish they put more pressure on me. Maybe I would have made it more a priority, but I don't blame this on them. Um, I've always been worried about the stigma that I have always felt attached to it. My younger brother is married with a beautiful wife and a beautiful family. And my brother, I've always looked to for guidance and advice. I always say, like, he was like the normal one.
All right, so let's stop here and let's talk about this part. Now, I want you to notice she's not without examples. Her parents are together and raised her. She said so. She said her parents never, they had to have been there if they were there and didn't put pressure on her to get married. Her brother, by her own admission, is married, beautiful wife, beautiful family, doing good. But she said something very important, and I want you to catch this. That the pressure to marry and have children exists more in some cultures than it does in others. The lower culture does not stress getting married. The lower culture does not stress having children. Let's move on.
Normal one, the one with a lot of common sense between the two of us. And I always used to, I don't know, I would talk to him about things. I was always worried about people thinking there must be something wrong with me because I'm unmarried and over the age of 40. I mean, okay, let's just be real. You see someone, you're like, why aren't they married? What's wrong with them? What's their problem? There must be something. She crazy, right? Is that not something that people wonder about or worry about? And yes, sometimes. And I'm not putting everybody under the bus, but I'm just saying that is something I have always been worried and bashful about. Are people going to think there's something wrong with me? And well, shoot, there might be. I don't know, but I don't want that. The other thing is, you know, sometimes people have opinions. Well, oh, you must be picky. Oh, you must this, you must that. And, you know, those.
All right, let's talk about it. You heard it from her. She's spilling the beans here. She's telling you what's going on. She's crazy. She don't want it to be her. Yeah, but she's not so easy to get along with. At least in some ways and sometimes. Oh yeah, she's picky. 6 foot tall, 6-pack abs, 6-figure income, 6 inches. The whole evil sixes, right? Gotta have them all. Can't leave anything out. She's picky. She's picky and she's difficult. And that is a recipe for loneliness. Let's move on.
Those thoughts. But I know some might. And that has always been rough for me. So why am I not married? All right. I'm going to tell you the answer. But let me just tell you what I was doing and where my mind was. Because this makes, I think, is a big thing. You know, when I was young, I didn't dream about getting married and having babies. It's not that I didn't think I would do that. It's just that wasn't in my dreams. To be honest with you, I was always worried that I wouldn't be successful. Everybody, I think, has an Achilles heel. Everybody has something. And I honestly was at some points during my education and career, whether it was in music school or at Princeton or whatever, there were times when I was deathly afraid of not being successful. And when I say successful, I'm not talking about money and stuff like that. I'm talking about just making it, right? Succeeding, making it to med school, passing my boards, you know. And I did all of those things, but that was always front and center. When I was in my 20s, to be honest with you, I was just trying to make my parents proud and to become something, because I honestly was truly afraid that I wouldn't be. That was something I worried about. And you know what? I didn't take dating very seriously. I dated in med school. I dated people in med school. I didn't take it very seriously. In my
There you go. She said it herself. She didn't take it very seriously. She was more worried about being successful because she was afraid she wouldn't be. Why is that? Because lower culture teaches you that what you are as an economic unit in our society is what you are. And do you know what a mother is? Zero. A mother's a big, fat zero. Nothing. And that's how she was raised and how she grew up. And she didn't take anything else seriously. Now she's telling you she's frozen her eggs, but she's already in her mid-40s. She's going to hit the absolute limit biologically soon and be entering into perimenopause. And she's done. She's done at that point. I mean, she did what she was trained to do. Be successful at a career at the expense and the cost of the rest of her life. Do you understand that? I hope you understand that. Let's carry on, because this conversation is just getting warmed up.
Half of my 30s. But what happened was around the time I started freezing my eggs, my latter part of my 30s, I actually started panicking about the fact that I wasn't married. And I remember specifically talking to my mom being like, why didn't I take this seriously? Why didn't I make better decisions? And I started thinking back to all the guys I dated being like, oh, should I go back? Maybe he was one. Why did I, and I tortured myself, crucified myself, because I said, how could you not have taken this seriously? What did you do? You let all this time pass, and now you're almost 40. And what the flip? How did we get here? Because all of a sudden I was approaching 40, and my parents were like, you need to freeze your eggs. I was like, ah. And I was really hard on myself during that time. I really, really was hard on myself. I was remorseful. I was regretful. I was embarrassed. And I felt like I had wasted a lot of time. And that.
There you go. The next part of it. You heard her herself. She hit the wall and she freaked out. She lost it. What was I thinking? What was I doing? Why didn't I do this? And now you understand the intensity of baby rabies. Do not underestimate the power of baby rabies. I'm telling you, I've seen it firsthand, and it will mess you over. You do not want a part of a woman with baby rabies. You do not. You want to leave that alone. Leave it alone. But she did freeze her eggs when she got late 30s. She did freeze her eggs. Now, no one will tell you that the success rate for those frozen eggs is 5.7%. But let's carry on, because there's more.
Why I haven't gotten married is honestly because I haven't found him yet. I just, and you know what? It was one day that it literally took me waking up one morning where I had blamed myself and said, well, maybe you are too picky. Well, maybe you are crazy. And maybe you didn't take this seriously. And why didn't you do this? And why weren't you this? And I can't believe you did this. And how did you let 15 years go by without thinking about this? But you know what? The bottom line that I actually came to a realization about, and there's a lesson in this. There's a reason why I'm telling you this. It's not just bearing my soul, which I am, but there's a reason. I recently, by the way, in the last couple of weeks, encountered a couple of younger to great careers and stuff, and talking to them, I remember, I remembered a lot about my younger self, how insecure I was, how worried I was about so many things. And one thing I have never really felt settled about is my relationship status. Yes, I'm in and out of relationships here and there, but I spend more time out of relationships than in them. And people are like, why? What's wrong? I'm always worried. People are like, what's wrong with her? But you know what? I feel so much better about it. So the thing is though, I finally woke up one day recently in the last couple years. Actually, the pandemic I think really helped me with this. And I woke up and I said, you're not married because you haven't met him. Jen, you haven't met him.
And there you have the next part, right? She said a couple of things here, right? She was talking about how she hasn't met him yet. Whoever that was, she hasn't met him yet. But we all know that that's a cope. If you go back and you listen to Kevin Samuels, he will tell you the truth. And the truth is that for the vast majority of women, by the time they're 30 years old, you've met the guy you should have married and settled down with, and you passed on him. And now she's telling herself, well, if I go back and I look at these guys, they all had little issues. Well, yeah, they did all have little issues. Everybody has little issues. You pick your struggle. You pick your struggle. Now, there's some basics that you can't pick struggles over. You can't pick struggles over your health. You can't pick struggles over your peace. You can't pick struggles over money. Those three things you can't pick struggles over. Is she a little messier than you would like and you end up having to fill things in? Is she clingy and a homebody and always around and doesn't want to go out? That's okay. You can pick a struggle. You can pick one of those struggles and you can be fine. And you can be the person who wants to go somewhere. And you drag her off to do this and drag her off to do that. And as long as you keep it in balance, you'll work it out and you'll be fine. You can pick your struggle. But you can't pick your struggle over those three things. Those three things have to line up. Right? There has to be respect and peace and quiet. There has to be money. The money has to be handled in a good way. You have to maintain your physical and your mental health. You can't play with those. But the other ones, yeah. She's looking back saying, oh, I never met him yet. And that's a cap. She absolutely has met somebody. She was engaged once. You know she's met somebody. But let's go on. Because there's more.
I think really helped me with this. And I woke up and I said, you're not married because you haven't met him. Jen, you haven't met him. If I had met him, I'd be married. I don't look back. And even though I've tried to look back and say, oh, maybe it was him, did I pass him by, maybe I should go. There's no one in my past that I feel like I should go back to. And there's no disrespect to any of the men that I've dated. If you're watching this, I love you all. And I really do. I'm friends with most of my exes. I have no hard feelings. But the truth of the matter is, I finally had to accept what for me was a relief, which was that I haven't met him. And it's reminded me and re-taught me that things only happen the way they're supposed to and in the time that they're supposed to. See, I'm saying this now because maybe for you, it's not that you're over 40 and not married. Maybe it's a child thing. Maybe it's a work thing. Maybe it's a something else thing with you. Maybe you look at other people and say, if only I coulda, woulda, shoulda, or I'm not that.
All right. So there's the next part, right? Magic. It's all magic. What did she say? If I'd met him, I'd be married. If he was masculine enough, I'd be feminine. If he was strong enough, if he was rich enough, I would have settled down. Because it's magic, you see. It's magic. Now, I have to admit that finding someone attractive and developing a relationship with them and getting involved with them and deciding to make it permanent, there's something to wanting to be emotionally attached. There's something to wanting to be attractive and liking that person. But that's not the same thing as it being magic that you have no control over, that you can't do anything about. It's magic. It's the Disney fairy tale. It's the prince that just comes along out of the blue and just changes her world and just sends her skyrocketing into nirvana. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy. And there's a whole lot of women, just like this woman, who thinks it's real. Soulmates. Oh, our soulmates. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. I once heard a preacher actually stand up on stage and go, "Oh, so you believe in soulmates, do you?" And he was like, "Well, yes, Pastor, I do." And that's the truth that no one likes to hear. There's no such thing as a soulmate. You had your chances. You had your choices. You had your pick. You had your opportunities. And you had your time to look and try. And you didn't. And there's no magic to that. Just consequences. Just consequences. But let's move on. Because there's more.
You don't know how many times I look at Instagram posts and Facebook posts all the time. I look at so many amazing female doctor colleagues, and I look at them and I am so proud of my female doctor colleagues. And I see many of them have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, I didn't figure that out. I couldn't make that happen. I have not been successful at that. And then I have to stop myself and say, my path was not supposed to be everyone else's path. Our paths are individual. Each one of our paths are independent of others. And we are not like our peers. We are not like our family. We are not like our friends. We are us. And the truth of the matter is, when I finally got that idea through my thick skull, it kind of helped me a bit. Regardless of who it is you're meant to be with, if you're supposed to have children, if you're supposed to have a certain job, if you're supposed to do a certain thing, whatever it is, for me, releasing myself from the past of what it should have happened, what I should have done, who I should have been, has been the greatest gift of all. That's a Whitney Houston song. The greatest gift of all? I think she says the greatest gift of all is loving yourself or something like that. And I don't mean to sound all like woo-woo, but this is for all the women out there who may be in my boat, who's over 40, not married. I'm not even close to married. I'm not dating a guy seriously. And it terrifies me to think that in order to have a child, the time that it's going to take me to find a guy, lock that in, get married, have a kid, it makes me want to vomit, just being very honest with you, because I'm overwhelmed and I'm like, I don't even know. Am I going to be too old to have a kid? I don't know. But the bottom line is that I have to trust the process. I have to trust life. I have to trust God, who I believe in, trust whomever, whatever you believe in. And I also have to trust that what has happened in my life was not supposed to happen any other way. I was not supposed to be anyone else. I couldn't have been a different Jennifer. I couldn't have...
All right. And now you're hearing more of what she's really thinking, right? She's telling you the truth. Other women who are doctors, they got married. They have children. They have a family. They have a good life. And she doesn't. Because she never figured it out. Because those other women who are doctors came from a different culture. And those women, let me tell you a little secret. Those women in college, while they're going to college, they find a man. They intentionally find a man. Whether it's their high school sweetheart or someone they meet later, they find a man. They find a man that's acceptable to them. And they settle down and they have a family. By the time they're done with college, they're at least engaged. Almost the vast majority of them. Normally, almost all of them are off the market by the time they're 27 years old, and there's only a teeny tiny trickle of them that had health issues, or the person they were planning on being their spouse or something died, like in the wars that we just had. And she's not one of those. She doesn't understand. She doesn't know what they did. And so she breaks out the copium. You see her. She's huffing on it hard as she can. It wasn't meant to be any way different. This is how it was meant to be. This is how it was supposed to be. Right? But the truth is, she watched her friends get married. The truth is, she watched her friends get married and did nothing. And that's the truth. But let's move on. God, there's more.
It's pretty cool, but it's not required. And who knows? I mean, look, I'm going to be making videos until I can't. So I might literally be a 65-year-old first-time mom. Watch, okay? And I'm not saying that, God, to wish that at 65 I have a kid. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you see me over here pushing with a walker and a baby on my hip, okay? All I know is that sometimes you just have to accept life, the life that we were given. And it's not bad. My life is fantastic. But sometimes there can be a lot of pressure with certain things in our lives. Don't beat yourself up for whatever it is you think you should have been, or you think you should have done, or you think you should have become. Because what was supposed to happen, it could never have happened a different way. I learned that from Oprah. That's not an original idea, by the way. It was an Oprah episode, and I believe the episode was this was years ago when she had her show, because y'all know how much I love Oprah. And I believe the episode was about was featuring victims of child sexual abuse or child abuse. And I do not in any way relate what I'm describing to that. But there was something from that episode that I took that I'll never forget, which is, she and the therapists and the psychologists and the health practitioners were talking with the victims, and they were talking about this concept that, sometimes forgiving yourself and accepting things is about recognizing and realizing that what has happened could never have happened any different way. And as much as I sometimes beat up on myself for, why can't you get it together? Why can't you just find a man? Why don't you have a kid? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? And I know this may seem maybe vain or not even a big deal in the world's problems that we have today, and I recognize this. But I'm just here to say that anything is okay.
And there you go with the next part of the copium. Now you can see she breaking out the crack pipe here, right? Talking about having a baby at 65 years old. She's lost her mind. She thinks in the next 15 years, we're going to make so much advances in science when it comes to pregnancy that she gonna carry a baby at 65. Now tell me she hasn't broken out the crack pipe. Come on now. That's nuts. That's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay? And she's just huffing on it. She's things couldn't have turned out any better. I don't have any free will. I don't have any agency. I can't make choices. I can't decide my life path. Despite the fact that it took years and years and years of intentionally determining your life path to become a doctor. But it couldn't have turned out any different. She couldn't have become an accountant. She couldn't have become a dental hygienist. It's all predetermined, and she has no control over it. No attempts to look back and say, yeah, I made mistakes. Yeah, I was wrong. No, I didn't do this right. And instead of encouraging younger women to not repeat her mistakes, she says it's okay to just make the same mistakes I made. We're almost to the end now. One last little section.
Your time, or it hasn't been your time, or you want a certain job or don't want a job, or you want to marry somebody who looks like you, who doesn't, whatever the case is. There are no rules about this. That is one good thing that time has brought us, right? So as time has gone on, more things are acceptable. So like I said, I might be walking around here with a walker or a wheelchair with a baby on my lap. Don't laugh at me, okay? I'll be the definition of a geriatric first-time mom. Don't think I won't start a blog about that. I pray that that's not when it happens. But to all the young women and all the women and men out there that are trying to forge their path, young, old, or what have you, don't get caught up in what people think you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be. And just because you don't follow the rules doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're crazy or you're this or that. It just means you're you, and you weren't supposed to be any other way. So take it from me. It's okay. We'll get through this together, whatever it is you're going through.
And there you have it. There's no right. There's no wrong. There's no good. There's no bad. There's no consequences. There's no judgment. There's no nothing. There's no telling the younger people, don't make the same mistakes I did. There's no consequences. There's no consequences. She can be out here running around at 65 years old with a baby on her hip. Because that's what we're going to focus on in this society, is giving 65-year-old women babies. Even if we make artificial wombs, 10 years from now, those are going to be used for preemies from women who are already pregnant. And it's going to take years after that before we start to actually totally gestate babies in artificial wombs. It's going to be years and years. And when we do, we're not going to be giving babies to 65-year-old women. I told you, she going to huff this crack pipe. But do you catch what she's telling you? Do you catch what she's saying? She's looking back on this at her own life. And she's saying, no. There is no point in my life in which I was wrong. In which I should have done something else. Which I should have just tried something else. No. It was all perfect. It was all perfect. There you have it. I told you this one was going to make your ears bleed. Sorry, guys, but we just had to do it. But this is the story. This is the story of how you end up where she is. And I'm hoping there are women out here watching this and listening to this and giving what you just heard a good hard think before you walk down that dead end alley that so many other women right now are walking down. Let me tell you a little secret. Can I tell you a little secret? 20 years from now, that college is still going to be there. They're not going to shut those colleges down. Those people in those colleges, they make damn good money for damn little work. They're not going to give that up unless they have to. They will find a way to charge somebody the money they need to keep that going. Because that's too good of a racket to give up voluntarily. That school's not going anywhere. You know what's going somewhere? Your fertility window. Your fertility window is going to have about 10 years on it. And then it's going to start to sputter a little. But that school will still be there. Trust me. So, if you got anything out of that, you like this video, hit the bell, subscribe, share it. Send it to some woman that needs to hear this walking this path and isn't thinking about it, just kind of like bumbling along. Don't if you can, share it, man, and see what happens. But I hope you got something out of it, and I'll be back soon enough.